أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، بارئ الخلائق أجمعين، باعث الأنبياء والمرسلين، ثم الصلاة والسلام على خير خلقه العبد المؤيد والرسول المسدد، حبيب إله العالمين أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد. وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين وصحابته المنتجبين. صلى الله عليك يا رسول الله، صلى الله عليك يا سيدي ويا مولاي يا أبا عبد الله، يا رحمة الله الواسعة، ويا باب نجاة الأمة، ويا عبرة كل مؤمن ومؤمنة، يا مظلوم يا غريب يا شهيد كربلاء، يا ليتنا يا ليتنا كنا معكم سادتي فنفوز فوزا عظيما. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. وما تقدموا لأنفسكم خيرا تجدوه عند الله، تجدوه عند الله هو خيرا وأعظم أجرا. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. A second for the love of Imams al-Hassan wal-Hussein. A third for the love of Fatima al-Zahra with your loudest voices. There's a man in a specific community that I will not mention their name. This person has a full-time job. He has a family. He has children. He pays mortgage to pay off for his house. He has duties and responsibilities towards his family and his social life just like everyone else. However, despite the fact that he's a very busy man and who has a lot of expenses on his shoulders, and he has kids and grandkids, and he's expected to support them, yet this person volunteers every Saturday to run the Saturday school in his local community. Whether it's summer or winter or spring or autumn, this person runs the Saturday school for free. He doesn't charge money. Maybe the Saturday school charges the kids, but he doesn't take money for himself. He does it for free. He's the principal. He's the teacher. He's the person that vacuums and cleans. He's the first person to open the door, and he's the last person to close the door and lock it. Throughout the year, he volunteers his Saturday for the community. Now, Saturday is on the weekend. Weekend is a special time for those of us that don't have time to do our chores, because throughout the week you're working. You leave it for Saturday and Sunday. If you don't have time to see your family members, you see them on Saturday and Sunday. If you don't have time to go out during the week, you do that on Saturday and Sunday. No one wants to waste their Saturdays. But this person volunteers his Saturday of every week for his community. Not just that, every summer there's a youth camp for the youth in the community. They rent out a facility that holds a big number of cabins for the youth, boys and girls, of over about 100 youth. This same person that runs the Saturday school, he runs the camp. From A to Z, he organizes the events, he organizes the programs, he rents the cabins, he brings the food, he arranges for the sports, he does everything, and again, free of charge. What do you say about this person? He's a fabulous human being. He's a responsible human being. If everyone preaches about Islam, this person implements Islam through the generous act of volunteering. Tonight, my dear brothers and sisters, I'd like to talk about the culture of volunteering in Islam. What does Islam say about volunteering our time for certain causes? And I'd like to talk about how we can spread Islam and enhance the image of Islam through volunteering. وصلوا على محمد وآل محمد. What does it mean to volunteer? What is volunteering? Volunteering means to give your time willingly, meaning without force. No one is forcing you. Willingly, you give your time for a specific cause without recompensation, or without compensation rather. So without being paid, for nothing in return. You give your time for a specific cause. This cause could be a religious cause. You could donate your time to your mosque, to your Hosseiniya, to your church, to your synagogue, if you're non-Muslim. It could be a humanitarian cause. For example, it could be relief for the victims of natural disasters, floods, earthquakes. A lot of people will be displaced. A lot of people will lose their homes and will need food and shelter. You go and volunteer your time to support these people. That's a humanitarian cause. 3, it could be a national cause, a patriotic cause. Someone volunteers to go and be part of the army, for example. It could be any of these causes. This is called volunteering. And in all cultures, in all religions, volunteering is considered something noble, something good. Ask anyone, whether they're a Christian or a Jew or a Buddhist or a Muslim, even atheists. Ask them, what do you think of volunteering? They'll tell you it's a good cause. It's a good act. It's selfless. It shows that that person who volunteers his time is generous. Some people are generous with money. Other people are generous with time. And if you remember 2 nights ago, we said that time equals money. No, time is more valuable than money. So if you are willing to donate your time for a cause, you're more generous than the person that donates money. Because time is more valuable than money. Recently, if you've been keeping up with the news, you know the United States of America, which is considered to be the greatest nation on earth, was hit with some of the worst hurricanes history has ever known. One hit the state of Texas, specifically the city of Houston. Houston is the fourth largest and most important city in the United States of America. Yet it was flooded. People had to evacuate. For weeks, or maybe days, the streets of Houston were flooded. You couldn't leave your house. And Florida as well. And Florida was also hit by Hurricane Irma. Texas was hit by Hurricane Harvey. And there was a lot of devastation. I remember when Hurricane Harvey hit Texas, there was a lot of people that lost their homes. I know some of these people. Some of them were Muslim. Some of them were Shia. In fact, there are a lot of Shia in Houston. They lost their homes. They lost their cars. Does insurance take care of it or not? I don't know. But there were so many volunteers from non-Muslims. Maybe thousands of volunteers that come and volunteered to help provide shelter, to provide food, to provide relief. This was something beautiful. So many people, they came and donated their time to relieve the victims of Hurricane Harvey. Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. You know, here in the West, they're not Muslim, but it doesn't make them non-humanitarian, non-humane. In fact, like one of our great scholars once said when he visited Europe, he said, I found Islam without Muslims. And when I go to the Middle East, I find Muslims without what? Without Islam. Here in the West, volunteering is something part of Western culture. It's part of Western culture. For you to donate some of your time, to volunteer. Let me give you a couple of examples. Have you heard of the Salvation Army? Salvation Army is very well known and popular. The Salvation Army was founded in 1865 by a Christian priest by the name of William Booth in London, in the UK. William Booth was a preacher, but he was not your average preacher. For him, it wasn't enough to stand behind the podium and preach to people in the church. No. He said that I have to go to the people out on the streets. He would go out to the poor, to the unprivileged, even to criminals, even to drug dealers and gamblers, even to prostitutes. He would go and preach, as he would call it, the word of Christ. And it wasn't just him, it was his wife. And he had an entire army, and hence they were later called the Salvation Army. They went out to the streets. And he thought that the best way of calling people to Jesus Christ was by providing humanitarian aid. Provide food, water, shelter, clothing. Historians say that thousands of people converted to Christianity, or maybe they weren't even religious, but they became practicing Christians because of William Booth's movement. Thousands of people became Christian. Why? Through simple acts of kindness, by providing relief, by providing food, by providing clean water. Today, the Salvation Army serves in 100 countries and has over 1.5 million volunteers. These are people that don't expect anything in return. They're not being paid. 1.5 million people work for the Salvation Army without anything in return. And they've spread the name of Christianity. They've spread Christianity all over the world. Only in America, they've assisted 25 million people. Only in America. Imagine what they've done in Africa and other parts of the world. This is Christian missionary work. They spread the name of Jesus Christ through good work. This is one example. Another example is the Red Cross. I'm sure many of you have heard of the Red Cross. The Red Cross is also a Christian missionary movement that provides humanitarian aid through volunteering. It also started in 1863, just 2 years before the foundation of the Salvation Army, by a devout Christian by the name of Henry Dunant. This person, there was war in Europe, and he saw the number of casualties from the war. So many people were dying, so many people needed help. They needed blood. They needed medical aid. So he started an organization called the Red Cross. And they began to provide relief for the victims of war-torn areas, for the victims of violence and aggression and war. And it started. And this too was Christian missionary work. Their goal was to spread Christianity through humanitarian services. Today, the Red Cross, and they started another chapter called the Red Crescent as well. Muslims also participated. They work in over 80 countries with over 97 million volunteers. Imagine that. 97 million volunteers. They don't receive money. They don't receive compensation. They only do work in the name of Jesus Christ for this organization. Namely, they provide medical aid and blood donations. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. According to the Corporation for National and Community Services, in the year 2012, 64.5 million Americans, that's just almost about a quarter of Americans, a quarter of Americans, gave 2.9 billion hours of volunteering service that is worth up to $175 billion. Let me break that down. That calculates to about 125 to 150 hours of volunteering per individual. That's about 3 hours of service per week. Each hour is equivalent to $22. A quarter of Americans, a quarter of the American population volunteers 3 hours a week for either humanitarian causes or religious causes or patriotic causes. That's a big number. 3 hours per week. And in the UK, they have about similar rates. Now my question is, let's forget about Americans and the UK. Let's come to the Middle East. Let's come to Islamic countries. How many hours per week do Muslims volunteer for humanitarian causes or religious causes? How much would you say? I don't even want to get into the statistics and figures. You know why? Because they're embarrassing. Let's forget the Middle East. We Muslims living in the West, how many hours of volunteering do we have per week? 1, 2, 3, how many? Let's ask ourselves. I want you to ask yourself for a minute. How many hours do you volunteer for anything? It could be any cause. Any cause. How many hours? We shouldn't let others beat us to good deeds. That becomes embarrassing. Imam Ali alayhi salam, on his deathbed, he said, Allah, Allah fil Quran, la yasbiqukum fil amali bihi ghayrukum. Tells you, I remind you of the Quran. Don't let others implement the Quran more than you. Today, non-Muslims are implementing the Quran more than Muslims. Isn't this sad? The Quran that tells us to do good deeds and to spread good and to spread love and to spread peace. Others are implementing the Quran more than us. We're slacking off. Yes, when it comes to Muharram and Arba'een, we get a lot of volunteers. Come to Karbala and Arba'een, so many volunteers. People giving out free food. There's camps. There's volunteering. But as soon as Arba'een ends, no more volunteering. No more good deeds. No more passing out free food. Why? You know, I remember, someone came to Karbala during Arba'een and he said, I wish the entire year was Arba'een. Because you see so much love, so much generosity, so much giving. Those that have money, they give money. Those that have food, they give food. Those that have homes, they offer their homes. And those that have time, they offer their time. But what about the rest of the year? What about the rest of the year? Are we volunteering or no? This is one of our major problems here in the West. You know, if you ask a lot of Islamic centers, what is it that you have, one of your issues, one of your problems? They say lack of volunteers. We don't have volunteers. Our majalis, for example, we need youth to collect the chairs, to vacuum, to clean. We don't have volunteers. People come right when it's time to listen to the lecture, and they leave right after the lecture, or they leave right after food is served. But who serves the food? Who cleans later? Who does all of this? We don't have enough volunteers. And this is a problem. These decorations, putting up black, after the majlis is done, picking them up, this all requires volunteers. We don't have any. I see a lot of communities, they complain of lack of volunteers for conferences, for demonstrations, or julus, as some call them. For example, on the day of Ashura, or before or after, when people go out for demonstrations in the name of Imam Hossein, this requires volunteers for organization. How many people volunteer? Not too many. For camps, food drives, to take food to the impoverished, to the neglected, to the needy, even if they're not Muslim. Islam doesn't say just feed Muslims. Islam says feed, whether they are Muslim or not, even if they're not human. Islam encourages us to feed even animals, let alone humans. How many of us are willing to dedicate a couple of hours from our busy schedules? 1 hour a week, 2 hours a week, 3 hours a week. There's not a lot, because it's not part of our culture, unfortunately. While we see, on the other hand, non-Muslims in this society, Christians, Jews, others, they're the first to volunteer. They're the first to volunteer. Although Islam emphasizes on volunteering, you don't see many Muslims volunteer, but you see others, they're the first to volunteer. For example, a couple of years ago, when the refugee crisis started, how many non-Muslims volunteered to help them, to provide them with shelter, to provide them with homes, to provide them services, to teach them English, to teach them certain skills? There were so many. Here in such countries in the West, do you know how many people donate their time for the disabled, for nursing homes, for the elderly? They go and they assist the elderly. They assist at orphanages. even at zoos. Recently, I was at a community. They're in a very beautiful city. So one of the brothers, he took me out for a tour in the city, and we passed by a zoo, a very beautiful zoo. He said, Sayyid, you know the people that work at the zoo, they're all volunteers. They don't get paid. They're all zoologists. They're studying zoology at a nearby university. So they come and they volunteer their time at a zoo, serving animals. How beautiful is that? We live in a society that's built upon volunteering. Hospitals. There's so much volunteering that happens at hospitals. Serving the needy, serving the ill. But what about us Muslims? How many volunteers do we have? Unfortunately, sometimes we only know how to talk. But when it comes down for actions, when it comes down to really giving our time, we become lazy. We expect others to volunteer, yes. Fortunately. There are a lot of people that want to be served. But when it comes to serving, no, they don't want to be served. They want everything to be ready for them. They come to the majlis, they want everything to be ready. Well, why don't you come and serve? Why don't you come and volunteer? We don't have that culture, unfortunately. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. You might say, okay, I am convinced to volunteer 2 or 3 hours of my time. But where should I volunteer my time? This is an important question. Some people might be motivated and inspired to volunteer, but where should we volunteer our time? I'll tell you. Number 1, start with your local mosques. Your local mosques. I'm sure there's plenty of services that you could provide at your local mosque. You can cook, you can clean, you can vacuum. After every majlis, our mosques, remember in our first lecture, we said that our mosques have to be spotless. These are the homes of God. They have to be cleaner than our own homes. We need volunteers to vacuum, to clean, to cook, to organize traffic, especially during Muharram. When people park wherever they find an empty parking spot, even if it's not legal. I know in some places people come to the majlis of Aba Abdullah al-Hossein, yet they park in front of people's driveways or places where they're not supposed to park. You need someone at the majlis, at your mosque, to organize traffic. This requires a volunteer. And I've seen at some majalis and other places, there's volunteers. I've seen a person, it's drenching, it's raining, but he wears his yellow, those yellow suits, and he stands and he directs traffic. It's beautiful. He sacrifices his time. Instead of listening to the lecture, he lets others enjoy the lecture while he organizes traffic. I remember last year I attended a majlis. Not the majlis that I was speaking at, but I went to visit another majlis. And I saw someone organizing traffic. I went the second night, and I saw him again. I went on a third night, and it was the same person. I asked, there's no one else to volunteer? It's just one person? Just one? They said, yes, Sayyid, he's the president of the board. Subhanallah. He was an example. There's some people, they want to be president to show off, for big titles, to come and speak behind the podium. This was a genuine president. This is a genuine president. A president doesn't necessarily have to come and speak behind the podium and greet everyone. No. There's a saying in Arabic that says, Sayyid al-Qawmi khadimuhum. The leader of any group is the one that serves them. The one that serves them. He sacrificed 10 nights of Ashura. Everyone wants to come and listen to a speech. You want to listen to the musibah. You want to cry. You want to beat your chest. This gentleman was outside directing traffic. This is beautiful. And I tell you, this person learned from the message of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, because he learned to volunteer. Come and ask your local mosque, what services do they need? Come and provide them those services. Maybe they need someone to record the lecture. Provide media services. You know what great service this is? When someone comes and records. The dedicated brothers that come and record these lectures. You know, there's people in the United States and Europe that are listening to these lectures and they're benefiting. The reward goes to these brothers. You know, I was told that there's a community here in New Zealand, in Christchurch. They don't have a speaker. They have a big audience, but they don't have a speaker. They gather at their local Islamic center, and they're probably listening to me now. And they're watching this lecture live. Thanks to the dedicated brothers and sisters here that are providing this service to them. Free of charge. They're not being paid. This is volunteering. This is what Islam teaches. The children's program, it needs a volunteer. For someone to come and say, I will sacrifice my time. I will not listen to the lecture, and I will take care of the children so that others may benefit from the lecture. Here, alhamdulillah, you could do both. You could volunteer and listen to the lecture. There's so many services. This is one. Two, in your community there must be an Islamic school. Come and volunteer at that Islamic school. If you can teach, if you can administer, if you can look out after the children, volunteer. Three, refugees. Today, refugees are everywhere. And they could use our time. They could use our services. Let's not forget that some of us, one day, we too were refugees. Let's remember the new refugees that are coming. Let's volunteer our time to them. The local hospitals and nursing homes. Let's go and volunteer. You don't necessarily need to volunteer your time at an Islamic place. No, on the contrary, go out and volunteer your time at a local hospital, at a local nursing home for the elders. This is the best way to improve the image of Islam. Believe me, you'll be doing Islam a service. Especially the ladies. Go with your hijab. Go and volunteer an hour a week, 2 hours a week, at a local hospital, at a local nursery. Go and volunteer your time. Tell them you're a Muslim and you're proud to be a Muslim and you want to volunteer your time. Do you know how that improves the image of Islam? People will say, these are Muslims. These are good Muslims. Not the Muslims that we see on TV that are blowing themselves up. Those are fake, and these are the real ones. I'm reminded of the hadith of the Imam when he says, "Kunu du'atan lana bighayri alsinatikum." Call people to us, to Islam, but by not using your tongues. You don't have to use your tongues. By your actions, by volunteering, by giving your time for these causes, at a local hospital, at a local nursery, whatever it is, go out and look for them. There could be food drives, shelters. There's so many events, conferences, gatherings. Let's be in the habit. Let's learn the culture of volunteering. Let's learn from the Ahlul Bayt. One of the greatest volunteers in history was Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. Imam Ali alayhi salam. He was the greatest volunteer. At the Battle of Khandaq, the Battle of the Ditch, the idea that came from Salman al-Farisi to dig a ditch around Medina so that the enemy soldiers can't come and ambush the Muslims. Amr ibn Abd Wudd al-Amiri, he jumped across and he started calling Muslims. He challenged them for a fight. So Rasulullah, he stood up And he said, مَنْ لِعَمْرٍ وَأَنَا أَضْمِنْ لَهُ الْجَنَّةِ. Who volunteers to fight Amr, and I guarantee him paradise. Who volunteered? Ali ibn Abi Talib. He stood up. Rasulullah told him to sit down. Again, Rasulullah asked for a volunteer. Imam Ali stood up. 3 times, Imam Ali. Imam Ali was always a volunteer. When Rasulullah, a couple of nights ago, we talked about this story. When Rasulullah left Mecca to go to Medina, he wanted a volunteer to sleep in his bed. Who volunteered? Imam Ali alayhi salam. Imam Ali was the greatest volunteer in history. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. You might ask, well, okay, I want to volunteer, but what should I volunteer? What should I volunteer? Islam tells us, the hadith tell us. The hadith tell us, لِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ zakat. Everything has a zakat, has a charity. Zakatul ilmi nashruh. The charity of knowledge is to spread knowledge. If you have knowledge, volunteer in spreading that knowledge. That should be what you volunteer. We all have skills. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us skills. Each one of us has his own skill. Don't tell me you don't have a skill. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed each and every single one of us. That skill of yours, how do you thank Allah for that skill? There's 2 ways of thanking Allah. There's one, al-shukrul qawli, al-shukrul lisani, thanking Allah by the tongue. And then there's al-shukrul amali, thanking Allah by actions and deeds. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed you with something, thank Him by giving that thing. For example, if Allah has blessed you with an apple tree at home, give some of those apples. Bring them to the mosque. Let's see those apples. Give. Whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you, give back. If it's money, give back some money. If it's fruits, give back some of those fruits. If it's a skill, give back that skill. Volunteer that skill. So for example, if you can teach English, if you're good in English, and there's people in your community that want to learn English, teach them how to learn English, volunteer. If you're good in Arabic, or Farsi, or Urdu, teach, volunteer. It could be at your local mosque, or at a local school, or whatever it is, teach. Even if you teach at people's homes, volunteer. If you know, for example, Taekwondo or Karate, yes, there's nothing wrong with that, teach. Teach your skill. If you're a good cook, and all ladies are good cooks, come on, we all know that. Cook for your community, for the majlis. Cook for Imam Hossein alayhi salam. That is one way you thank Allah for the skill. Volunteer. If you know how to recite the Quran, if you have a beautiful voice, come and teach the youth of the community. Volunteer your time. If you know how to recite the Quran, if you know how to explain the Quran, teach the Quran. خَيْرُكُمْ مَنْ تَعَلَّمَ الْقُرْآنَ وَعَلَّمَ. The best of you are those that learn the Quran and teach the Quran. Those who learn the Quran first and then they teach it. Medical aid, first aid kit, CPR, whatever. Teach in your community. How to search for a job. Maybe there's people in the community, there's youth that are looking for jobs, but they don't know how to search for a job. You know, come and teach them. They don't know how to write an application, come and teach them. They don't know how to write their CV, teach them. This is a skill, not everyone knows how to do it. Do a workshop at your local Islamic mosque, Islamic center. Do a workshop on how to write a CV, on how to fill out a job application. Photoshop, IT, these are all skills that you can share. Translations. There's people in the community that might need a translator. They go to government offices and they don't speak English and they need someone to translate for them. Go and translate. Be a volunteer. And so on and so forth. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. If you don't want to volunteer in your country, you can volunteer in other places. In unfortunate countries, in countries that need volunteers. For example, Iraq. Iraq today needs volunteers. Afghanistan needs volunteers. We need good doctors in Iraq today. We need hospitals. Alhamdulillah, today, with the effort of good people, we do have some good hospitals, but we need good doctors as well. If you're a good doctor, come and donate a week or 2 weeks of your time in Iraq, in Afghanistan, in Africa, in these countries. We have so many orphanages in Iraq and these countries. Come and volunteer in these orphanages. Come and train nurses, technicians, webmasters. Come and volunteer in these countries. We are in need of volunteers. This is work for the sake of Allah Azza wa Jal. And you will be rewarded for these deeds. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Now, does volunteering have any benefits for the person that is volunteering? Absolutely. So many benefits. One, you will learn how to do teamwork. When you volunteer, and there are other volunteers, and you work together to put on a majlis, to serve food, to clean, whatever it is that you do, there has to be teamwork. There's a team. You will learn how to work with others, how to compromise. Right? It can't always be your way. You have to share ideas. Majority rule. You will learn that by volunteering. And we all need to learn teamwork. Because teamwork skills are important at work, at home. You can't build a family without teamwork. You can't run a business without teamwork. So volunteering will give you the skill of teamwork, how to work with others. This is one benefit. Two, it reduces stereotypes about cultures. When you come and work and volunteer at the Majlis of Abu Abdullah, you're Iraqi, you're from Afghanistan, Iranian, Lebanese. These are different cultures. You might have stereotypes about these cultures, but when you come and work together, it will reduce the stereotypes. You will learn about each other's culture. You will begin to develop an appreciation for other cultures. Oh, that's what you do in Afghanistan? This is what you do in Iraq? This is how you commemorate Ashura in Iran, or in this village or that village. You begin to appreciate one another by volunteering. It also allows young people to find others whom they can relate to. You make friends through volunteering. When you come and you volunteer, you'll make friends. You'll make companionships. You might even find your future spouse by volunteering. Of course, that should not be your intention, to find a husband or wife from volunteering. No. That's just some of the benefits on the side. Your intention should be to serve Allah Azza wa Jal. Right? According to statistics, volunteering has been proven to enhance people's health and improve their lives, according to statistics. Especially the elderly. The elderly have been proven, if they were to come and volunteer their time, their skills, for any cause, it improves their health. Their health improves. Their overall life enhances. This has been proven through statistics. Why? Because volunteering gives you a goal. It gives you an objective. There has to be an objective in life, my dear friends. If a human being does not have an objective in life, he will get lost and he will go. You know, I've seen statistics that a great deal of people, after retirement, they begin falling ill. After retirement. Why? Because they have nothing to do. There's no goal in life. They're sitting at home. They're starting fights with their wives. There's no goal, there's no objective. They start feeling ill. While in Islam, there's no such thing as retirement, my dear brothers and sisters. This culture of retirement, we've taken this from the West. In Islam, there's no such thing as retirement. In Islam, it's all about achieving and working and producing. Yes, you need time to relax. You need time to rest. But there's no such thing as retirement and sit at home and do nothing. If you retire, you can always volunteer. And volunteering has proven to enhance the quality of life and to give better health. There are other benefits of volunteering. Gaining self-confidence and self-esteem. When you volunteer and you contribute to society, you will gain self-confidence. You will gain the respect of society. People will respect you. You will be dignified. People will say, yes, this is a good human being. This is a respectful and honorable human being that contributes to his community. You will gain experience. When you volunteer for a specific cause, you gain experience. You will put this on your CV. And it will look good for you when you apply for a job because you have experience. You will gain a sense of accomplishment. You will feel productive. Your time has not gone to waste. And most importantly, you will gain the satisfaction of Allah Azza wa Jal. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Now we also have great examples of volunteering in our communities, alhamdulillah. For example, we have Imamiyya medics. This group of doctors, a couple of days ago, they gave a presentation, Imamiyya medics. These are doctors from the Imami school of thought. They are Shia that dedicate their time to go and serve in places where they need help. They go to Africa. They go to the various countries of Africa to provide medical support. They come to Iraq. They'll be coming during Arba'een. They dedicate their time. They're volunteering. They don't get paid. There's another organization called A World Without Barriers. I've seen them firsthand work. They've come to our orphanage in Karbala. We have an orphanage in Karbala. These are a group of doctors from the UK. Some of them are dentists, optometrists, general practitioners. They come to Iraq and other places and they serve orphans, the needy, for free of charge. There's another group of dentists from Canada, from the city of Vancouver. I've seen them also. They come to Iraq, Karbala and Najaf, and they treat orphans for free, dentists. They treat their teeth for free. They take out a week or 2 weeks out of their busy schedules that they come and they volunteer. And these are examples for us and our youth. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. The Quran says, وَمَا تُقَدِّمُوا لِأَنفُسِكُم مِّنْ خَيْرٍ تَجِدُوهُ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ. Whatever good deed that you do for yourself as an investment, you will see on the Day of Judgment. Volunteering is a good deed, my dear friends. And on the Day of Judgment, we'll be rewarded for it. فَمَنْ يَعْمَلْ مِثْقَالَ ذَرَّةٍ خَيْرًا يَرَهُ. He who does a deed, a good deed, the size of an atom, a very small size, you will see it. وَقُلْ اعْمَلُوا فَسَيَرَى اللَّهُ عَمَلَكُمْ وَرَسُولُهُ وَالْمُؤْمِنُونَ. A man came to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. Send a loud salawat. He told him, Ya Rasulullah, أَيُّ النَّاسِ أَحَبُّ إِلَى اللَّهِ. Which humans, which people are the most beloved to Allah? Who does Allah love the most? وَأَيُّ الْأَعْمَالِ أَحَبُّ إِلَى اللَّهِ. And which deeds are the most beloved to Allah? Rasulullah told him, أَحَبُّ النَّاسِ إِلَى اللَّهِ أَنْفَعُهُمْ لِلنَّاسِ. The most beloved people to Allah are those that benefit people, that spread good, they benefit. These people are the most beloved. Those who serve. وَأَحَبُّ الْأَعْمَالِ إِلَى اللَّهِ عَزَّ وَجَلَّ سُرُورٌ يَدْخُلَهُ عَلَى الْمُسْلِمِ. And the best deed is the happiness that you provide other Muslims. And other people, in fact. They don't have to be Muslims. By serving others, by bringing smiles to people's face, through volunteering. This is the best of deeds. SubhanAllah, when it comes to Muharram and the cause of Imam Hussein, you get plenty of volunteers. The only time in which there is plenty of volunteers is Muharram. You see the group that just brought that food? You know how heavy that table was? But they do it. And they're more than happy to do it. And they're honored to do it. Why? For the sake of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. When it comes to Imam Hussein, there's so many volunteers. People are willing to volunteer their time, their wealth, their money, their food, their homes. Everything for the cause of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Ya Aba Abdullah, what have you done? What have you done to people's minds and hearts? Year after year, you know, it's as if Imam Hussein died this year. When you look at the fervor and the pain in people's hearts, you wouldn't think that Imam Hussein died 14 centuries ago. You would think that he died today. With the pain that exists in people's hearts. إن لقتل الحسين حرارة في قلوب المؤمنين لا تطفأ أبدا. The hadith says that for the death and martyrdom of Imam Hussein, there is a pain in the hearts of the believers. This fire is in the hearts of believers. This fire will never be extinguished until the day of judgment. The companions of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, they were all volunteers. They all volunteered, but they didn't volunteer their time. They volunteered their lives for Imam Hussein alayhi salam. And on the day of Ashura, there was a 14-year-old volunteer. There were volunteers of all ages and of all races. But this volunteer was 14 years old. On the night of Ashura, Imam Hussein alayhi salam, he asked his companions, he told his companions, he turned off the lights and he told them, whoever wishes to leave may leave. إن هذا الليل قد غشيكم فاتخذوه جملا. The night has encompassed you. For those of you that want to leave, you may leave. Of course, none of them left. Imam Hussein alayhi salam then showed them their places in heaven. And then he told them, إن الله قد أذن بقتلي وقتلكم. Allah has allowed for our martyrdom tomorrow. His nephew Al-Qasim ibn al-Hasan, he came to him, he told him, my dear uncle, am I among the martyrs tomorrow? Am I among the martyrs? Will I be killed tomorrow? Imam Hussein did not know what to tell him. He told him, Bunay wa kayfa al-mawtu indak. My nephew, how do you see death? How do you see martyrdom? He told him, Wallahi ya am fi nusratika ahla min al-asal. Death in your victory, in order to support you, this death is sweeter than honey. my dear uncle. On the day of Ashura, when one by one the companions entered the battlefield and sacrificed their life, Al-Qasim ibn al-Hasan came to his uncle Aba Abdullah. He told him, my dear uncle, you have given permission to all of these youth to fight. It's now time for me to enter the battlefield. Imam Hussein told him, my dear nephew, you are the only remembrance that I have of my brother Al-Hassan. I had promised my brother Al-Hassan to look out after you. How can I possibly give you permission to fight? Al-Qasim went. Moments later he came back with a note from Al-Hassan written to Aba Abdullah. Imam Hussein alayhi salam, he read this note addressed to him from his brother Imam Al-Hassan. It says, my dear brother Aba Abdullah, a day will come in which you will not have any supporters. Allow my son Al-Qasim to fight with you. Do not deprive him of this honor. Imam Hussein grabbed Al-Qasim. They hugged and they began to weep. And then Imam Hussein alayhi salam, he took the turban of Imam al-Hassan and he placed it on the head of Al-Qasim. He gave him the sword of his brother and the Quran of his brother. Al-Qasim was about to enter the battlefield, but he first went to say goodbye to his mother Ramla. He went to say farewell to Ramla. Ramla had raised Al-Qasim. Al-Qasim was an orphan from the age of 4. She had taken good care of him. She had waited to see his wedding. She wanted to see him get married. But all of these hopes and aspirations were killed in Karbala. All of these hopes and desires were killed on that day. Al-Qasim enters the battlefield. He starts to fight bravely. Hamid ibn Muslim, he says that all of a sudden we saw a face of a youth glowing with light as if it's a moon on its full night approaching us. One of the enemy soldiers said, by God, I will make his uncle sit over his dead corpse and cry over him. He rushed to him. As Al-Qasim was fighting, his lace of his sandal broke. He bent to fix the strap of his lace of his sandal. One of the enemy soldiers comes to him and hits him on his head with his sword. Al-Qasim falls to the ground. Nabi begins to shout, Amma alayka minni salam. فهذا جدي قد سقاني شربة لا أظمأ بعدها أبدا. This is my uncle who has quenched my thirst with a cup of paradise. Imam Hussein rushed to his nephew Al-Qasim. He sat next to him. He removed the sand and blood from his face. He told him, يعز على عمك أن تدعوه فلا يجيبك أو يجيبك فلا يعينك أو يعينك فلا يغني عنك شيئا. It is with great sorrow, my dear nephew Qasim, that you call me, but I can't do anything for you. تبا لقوم قتلوك تبا لقوم قتلوك ومن خصمهم يوم القيامة جدك وأبوك. Imam Hussein alayhi salam, he carries Al-Qasim back to the camp. بجايا وناداه يا قاسم ايش بيدي ايش بيدي يا ريت السيف قبلك حز وريدي هان الكوم تخلوني وحدي. Imam Hussein brings Al-Qasim and he puts him next to Ali al-Akbar. Moments he looks at Al-Qasim and moments he looks at Ali al-Akbar and he cries. Sayyidah Zainab comes to Imam Hussein alayhi salam. She tells him, Akhi Aba Abdullah, can you please leave the tent? He said, why? She said, because Layla and Ramla wish to come and sit over the bodies of their children, but they're embarrassed of you, Aba Abdullah. وقاسما ومظلوما لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. نسألك اللهم وندعوك باسمك العلي الأعظم الأعز الأجل الأكرم يا الله. اللهم لا تدع لنا ذنبا إلا غفرته ولا هما إلا فرجته ولا عيبا إلا سترته ولا خوفا إلا آمنته ولا رزقا إلا بسطته ولا شملا إلا جمعته ولا مرضا إلا شفيته ولا غائبا إلا حفظته وأدنيته ولا حاجة من حوائج الدنيا والآخرة لك فيها رضا ولنا فيها صلاح إلا قضيتها ويسرتها يا أرحم الراحمين. ولأرواح المؤمنين والمؤمنات والعلماء والشهداء نقرأ سورة الفاتحة مع الصلوات.